Champions, you're back in the arena, and it's good to see you. People often imagine authority springs from force or control, but the sharpest minds understood long ago that dominance is born in thought. When you cannot be bent, you quietly bend the world. Look closely. The planet is not governed by the biggest frames or the sweetest smiles. It's guided by planners and seers, the few who map 10 turns in advance while the crowd scrambles to respond to the last move. Across ages, muscle fades and charm withers, but method endures. The uncommon winners are those who refuse the default script. They do not chase feeling. They do not drown in noise. They watch. They compute. They shift. And when panic storms across the map, they act with icy precision. A Florentine statesman once observed that the wise move swiftly while fools dawdle to the same conclusion. Intelligence isn't hoarding facts. It's clarity under pressure, speed without haste, and a blade-like edge of thought. No one can confiscate that. You either forge it or serve someone who did. Here's the hard reality most won't confront. Your attention has been trained to stay soft, to court ease, to hide from weight, and to drip your hours into distractions designed to numb you. You scroll through triviality, argue about smoke, and then ask why your life feels small. The universe is not plotting against you. Your cognition simply stopped upgrading its firmware. Now imagine rebuilding it. Imagine moving through conversations at 10x the processing speed, reading micro-signals as if people were unsealed diaries, running quiet predictions before events unfold, and becoming so internally steady that manipulation slides off you like rain off glass. That is not fantasy. That's a practiced edge. Think of it as a new regime for the mind. Rigorous shaping, deliberate stress, and surgical habits that raise your baseline. When your thinking is stronger than your impulse, reaction dies and command appears. That is how you step above fear, deceit, and fragility, by winning the only battleground that matters, the landscape inside your skull. Before we dive deeper, write this vow in the comments. My mind is my strength. First principle. Intellect is the true engine of influence. Real primacy doesn't come from squeezing others. It arises from understanding systems, incentives, patterns, and people. When your awareness outruns your environment, you stop wrestling for control and start magnetizing it. The clever do not shout to prove anything. Accuracy and economy do the talking. Intelligence is not mere storage of data. It's foresight. It's the capacity to pierce through haze and sentiment and see the structure beneath appearances. When you grasp how people form decisions, what elevates or spooks them, and which narratives steer their choices, you move among crowds the way a grandmaster strolls through novices. Most individuals spend their life force crafting the costume of power. The thoughtful build the machinery. They collect signals. They refine models. They intervene lightly, but at the fulcrum. Because when you can sketch tomorrow with high probability, you can steer outcomes without 3 loud steps, often with none. Guard yourself from flattery by openly rewarding unvarnished truth. This is not politeness. It's strategic hygiene. The mind addicted to praise is easy to pilot. The mind addicted to accuracy is hard to touch. A disciplined thinker is not a victim of ego. They metabolize insult into information, break failure into components, and compress pressure into focus. Where brittle souls crack under judgment, the analytical grow teeth. Each test becomes feedback, each betrayal a dataset, each loss an instruction. This is why clear thought frightens manipulators. You can dazzle emotions with illusions, but reasoning demands coherence. You may play a heart that overfeels. You will struggle to trap a mind that overthinks with rigor. Train cognition, and you don't become omniscient. You become unstartleable. Your choices turn intentional. Your silences carry direction. The responses of others begin to fall within predictable ranges. That is the split between leaders and followers. Thinkers move like silhouettes in moonlight, quiet, exact, and timely. What does this look like in real life? It is mastery of timing, framing, and perception. You can shepherd a dialogue with 8 words. You can turn conflict by changing one premise. You can accumulate influence without raising your voice. Intelligence builds leverage. Leverage unlocks freedom. When your mental model explains how incentives shape behavior, how rules are drafted, and where power pools, you stop playing someone else's board game. You start drafting the board, and the horizon tilts toward you. This isn't about puppeteering anyone. It's about self-government so complete that external storms turn into tailwinds. Intelligence is self-command, alertness, and the patience to pause while others flail, to analyze while others react, and to move only when your position is strongest. The thoughtful see openings inside tension and stillness inside disorder. They don't let emotion drive the wheel, because emotion narrows vision. Reason expands it. That is why clear thinkers can sit steady while the room combusts. Etch this into your routine, every word you utter. Each choice you make and every feeling you give the keys to either fortifies or fractures your cognitive strength. Defend your mental citadel like it's an empire, because it is. Hone it daily. Challenge it on purpose. Feed it resistance. Study your world not to feel comfortable, but to comprehend it. If you learn to think unlike the crowd, you won't be treated like the crowd. A Renaissance analyst warned that a person who acts only by a perfect code in a crooked world risks quick ruin. Wisdom is not naive goodness. It is the craft of survival without surrendering your compass. And those who last, really last, practice depth of thought as their default. Now do this next. Drop this line in the comments to lock it in your nervous system. My intellect is my blade. Now the method. I call it edge forging for the mind. A 6-part training that converts your brain into a quiet instrument of strategy, discipline, and control. Not a pep talk. An upgrade. It makes you faster without rushing, clearer without coldness, and exceedingly hard to deceive. Phase 1. Induce productive strain. Comfort is the silent thief of brilliance. If you want a sharper cortex, you must install deliberate difficulty until good thinking becomes reflex, not refuge. The strain isn't pain theater. It's targeted resistance that forces the brain to wire faster links and cut cleaner distinctions. Rebuild your environment so it asks more of you than you expect. Choose tasks that stretch focus. Enter controlled debates with people who can out-argue you. Read ideas that unsettle your beliefs. Schedule short, high-intensity sprints in which distraction costs you something noticeable. This is not self-punishment. It is strength training for neurons. The mind behaves like sinew made of signals. Stress it wisely and it grows. Let it limp through comfort and it softens. Hunt problems with no elegant solution, except the frustration tax that accompanies growth. Seek conversations that expose blind angles, not compliments that anesthetize them. Place small wagers where your judgment is the principal variable. Then analyze the outcome mechanics. Avoid the predictable. Swap trivial entertainment for demanding puzzles. Take a different route. Learn a language with unfamiliar grammar trees. Argue the other side of an issue you think you understand. Solve patterns under time constraints. Each novelty creates micro-tiers, and the repair process leaves stronger pathways. But tension without digestion is noise, so capture insights immediately. Journal the surprises. Log triggers. Track repeating errors. Extract one tactical change after each drill. Simulate pressure regularly. Cold exposure for breath discipline. Meditation to spot the first twitch of panic. Timed problems to shrink deliberation. And social exercises to practice unreadability. As you crank the strain, watch your thresholds. Growth requires discomfort, not collapse. If overwhelm becomes chronic, lower volume and raise precision. Fewer, sharper challenges beat endless chaos. Over months, your capacity to hold tension turns into a resource bank. Your ceiling rises. Calm and heat becomes your baseline. While others freeze, you think. While others doubt, you move. That gap is leverage. Build a life that demands more of you than you intended to give and converts each stressor into a lesson. You are not preparing to survive average. You are training to make average irrelevant. A cunning observer from history advised that constant success belongs to those who shift with the times. Type this into the comments to anchor the habit. I welcome resistance. Phase 2. Cultivate prediction. Power accrues to those who foresee. People who can estimate the next 3 steps act above turbulence and rarely pay panic taxes. Prediction is more than watching. It is constructing foresight as a practice. Study human loops. Notice patterned reactions. Catalog habitual choices. Track the emotional levers that nudge behavior in repeatable ways. Record without moralizing. Then sketch scenarios. If pressure increases, what breaks first? If time decreases, which bias dominates? Don't wait for life to ambush you. Anticipate, prepare, and place yourself one beat ahead. Audit your own decision code, too. Which choices repeat without your permission? Which assumptions smuggle errors? Which impulses impersonate logic? Run internal premortems. Simulate the meeting. Draft responses to likely objections. Plan exits before entries. Train your eyes to catch micro-expressions, tonal shifts, and timing delays. Quiet tells of hidden aims. Stretch prediction beyond people. Markets, teams, institutions, communities, every system carries signals. Learn to hear them. A tiny change in cadence, a new habit, a missing reply. These are early tremors of bigger movements. Keep a ledger of outcomes, both wins and stumbles, to refine your forecasts. Each error is tuition. The more you track, the more your intuition lines up with reality, and the less you get yanked around by other people's chaos. Expectation must remain separate from desire. If fear or greed smears your lens, your map distorts. Cold observation is a competitive edge. Make it a habit to ask in every situation, what is the most probable next state? Then rehearse 2 or 3 viable contingencies. After enough reps, your mind starts to auto-model futures and rank actions without effort. Intelligence becomes durable not by hoarding facts, but by denying surprise its favorite weapon. You steer the field with almost invisible force. Post this to wire it in. I anticipate every move. Phase 3, build mental agility. Agility beats rigidity in unstable terrain. A flexible mind dominates situations that brittle thinkers cannot survive. Train your thoughts to pivot cleanly. Drop comfort when it blocks opportunity. See alternate routes where most see dead ends. Expose yourself to challenges that demand fast triage, incomplete information, multivariable trade-offs, adversaries who attack your core assumptions, parallel tasks with competing constraints. The agile mind does not worship certainty. It thrives in ambiguity. Flexibility is not flakiness. It's coherence under change. It's the capacity to alter your plan without losing your north. Practice reframing. For every obstacle, find 3 redescriptions and ask, which one releases a path others missed? Ask unconventional questions. What if we invert the rule? What if slowness wins here? What if the constraint is the leverage? Hold multiple strategies briefly in working memory, attach probabilities, and shift weight as evidence arrives. Emotional fluidity is part of agility. Let go of the outcome fast, not your standards. Detach from the version of the plan you loved and marry the objective instead. People who cling to identity-level ideas turn into statues. People who adjust without drama become hard to catch. Speed matters too. The quicker you can perceive, adapt, and decide with accuracy, the smaller the window others have to steer you. Train speed with timers, mock crises, rapid pre-plans, and tight feedback loops. Notice how the world resists adaptation and use that lag to your advantage. While others spend hours defending yesterday, you're already placing bets on tomorrow. Keep your nervous system calm enough to move quickly without jitter. The perfect tempo is fast thinking, slow pulse. That's the signal of a mind that bends, never breaks. Phase 4, sharpen perception. Most errors start with poor seeing. Upgrade your inputs and you cut mistakes in half before they form. Learn to separate signal from spectacle. Catalog the 5 or 6 variables that actually move the outcome and ignore the theater around them. Practice micro-observation drills. Name 3 new details in a familiar room. Sit in silence and identify sounds by distance. Read someone's posture and predict their opening sentence. Train context switching. Zoom out to first principles. Zoom in to immediate affordances and toggle until the picture clicks. Curate information ruthlessly. If an input steals energy without adding clarity, cut it. Reserve attention for sources that improve judgment. Adopt the habit of asking, what evidence would change my mind? Before you start arguing. That single question converts bias into boundaries. Perception is a muscle. Repetition sculpts it. Once you see more cleanly than your peers, decisions simplify and your edge compounds. Phase 5, master language. Words are steering wheels. The same idea packaged differently can escalate a fight or resolve it. Build a vocabulary for precision, not pretension. Learn to frame with intent. Present constraints as choices, spotlight incentives instead of orders, and replace accusations with observations. Use questions as levers. What outcome matters most to you? What would make this a win for both? Where is the risk we're not naming? Mirror briefly, then lead. In conflict, strip out heat, keep nouns solid and verbs actionable. Practice compactness. Remove filler. A clean sentence is a sharp tool. Learn narrative arcs, problem, tension, resolution. Use them in meetings, emails, and negotiations. Develop a neutral tone that carries authority without aggression. People trust voices that sound unshaken. Language is how you transmit perception and prediction to the world. When you wield it deliberately, you move groups without force. Phase 6. Install strategic patience. Power multiplies when you can wait at full readiness. Patience is not passivity. It's energy on a leash. Know your timing windows, when action is cheap and when it's expensive. Practice restraint after small wins, so you don't donate them back through overreach. Create buffers, time, capital, goodwill, so a setback never becomes a collapse. Use deliberate pauses to gather more signal. Let others reveal themselves. Most opponents self-sabotage if you give them rope. Build long games. relationships that compound, skills that stack, and reputations that travel faster than you do. Set tripwires that tell you when to surge. Patience fused with preparedness looks like luck to outsiders. Up close, it's simply discipline stretched across months and years. That is how you become unhurried and unavoidable at once. Let's stitch it all together. Strain trains your mind to stay sharp under load. Prediction places you ahead of events. Agility keeps you coherent when reality shifts. Perception cleans your inputs. Language extends your influence beyond your body. Patience ensures you act only when the odds favor you. These six together create a cognitive edge that is hard to copy because it lives in habits, not slogans. You will not feel like a different person on day one. You will feel slightly more aware, slightly less reactive. Then the world will start confirming your new posture. People tell you more than they meant to. Problems arrive earlier in your mind than in your inbox. Choices hurt less. Results tilt your way. That accumulation is the compounding curve of thought. Guard it. Feed it. Test it. And refuse the cheap dopamine that sells you back your attention at a markup. Day to day, keep the drills simple and strict. One block of deep, undistracted work. One dose of deliberate discomfort. One page of honest reflection. One conversation where you listen twice as much as you speak. One scenario rehearsed in your head before it happens. One assumption audited and, if weak, replaced. One deliberate act of saying no to preserve focus. One micro-win shipped, even if imperfect. That's 8 levers. Pull them most days and your baseline shifts in a season. Your mind stops chasing fires and starts placing water where sparks would have been. You won't broadcast this transformation. You won't need to. People will feel it in your steadiness, your timing, and the way outcomes collect around you. Leaders with real edge are easy to misread because they do not perform dominance. They practice it internally. They test their thinking under stress until composure is natural. They spot the emotional bait and let it float by. They frame discussions so collaboration becomes the rational path. They walk away from Pyrrhic victories. They see around corners without bragging about it. They take responsibility fast and credit slowly. They can exist in ambiguity without needing to convert it into certainty just to relieve anxiety. This is not coldness. It is warmth under governance. The paradox of true strength is that it looks calm. Storms rearrange themselves around it. If you want one rule to begin, reduce reactivity by half. Count 3 breaths before the sharp reply, 3 hours before the big decision, and 3 days before abandoning a long-term plan. Across that small pause, intelligence slips into the driver's seat. During those breaths, ask, what is the real game here? Where is the leverage? What is the downside I'm missing? In those hours, refine the map. In those days, compare outcomes against principles, not moods. Most disasters in careers, money, and relationships originate in uncontrolled reaction. Most breakthroughs come from precise, timely moves placed after patient observation. That is the quiet math of power. Keep one more truth at hand: the world rewards signal creators. When your thinking becomes crisp enough to generate clear signals, predictive insights, useful models, crisp language, people organize around you because clarity reduces their cost of action. Do not hoard clarity. Share just enough to align and no more than needed to move. When your edge deepens, generosity and discretion become strategic partners. You are not trying to look mysterious. You are conserving bandwidth and protecting the integrity of your models from noise. Move like a lighthouse, steady, bright, and economical. Remember the vows we stamped into this session. My mind is my strength. My intellect is my blade. I welcome resistance. I anticipate every move. Write them again below to rehearse the identity you're building, not as decoration, but as directives to your nervous system. Then go do one hard thing that forces you to think cleaner than yesterday. Step into a room where you're not the smartest voice and ask the question that scares your pride. Turn off the feed that makes your judgment lazy. Leave a conversation 5 minutes earlier than your ego wants. Start the language, the instrument, the framework you've delayed. You will feel friction. That's the point. That is the proof that you are forging. The work is not loud, but its results are. You do not need permission to become unmanipulable. You do not need a title to become strategic. You do not need perfect conditions to build leverage. You need a mind that refuses to outsource its thinking, a calendar that includes deliberate strain, and a standard that treats attention as sacred. If you care for those 3, time becomes an ally, not an opponent. The curve tilts, and one day you will notice that you are no longer fighting for a place in the room. You are the gravity of the room, not because you crushed others, but because you mastered yourself. That is the only crown that cannot be stolen, copied, or destroyed. Anticipate changes before they become obvious and be prepared to pivot without hesitation. Balance imagination with reason. Creativity opens new routes while logic confirms they can carry weight. A truly agile mind is neither stiff nor erratic. It's a trained performer moving between choices with deliberate grace. Treat every surprise, obstacle, or threat as a drill in flexibility, a chance to train instinct and widen your range. As your thinking turns fluid, attempts to corner, mislead, or steer you lose power because you refuse to hold a single fixed stance. You become a moving constant, impossible to predict yet exact, adaptive yet purposeful. This caliber of mental agility reshapes the brain into a living instrument that glides through uncertainty, complexity, and conflict with composed speed. A Renaissance strategist taught that patience and prudence beat reckless opponents. The vigilant outplay the careless. Ink this in the comments to lock your intent. My mind bends, yet it does not break. Now apply it. Test your reflex with constraints, limit your options, shorten the clock, and execute cleanly. Then debrief quickly. What helped? What hindered? Where did bias intrude? Repeat the cycle until responsive thinking becomes your default setting under pressure. Predictability invites pressure. If adversaries can map your pattern, they can box you, pace you, and beat you to the spot. To rule through unpredictability, train yourself to move without telegraphing motive, to switch behaviors in ways that puzzle onlookers, and to carry a presence that resists being decoded. Start small. Scramble your schedule. Change your approach to routine tasks. Rotate tactics so observers can't chart your rhythm. Tiny inconsistencies create hesitation around you as others pause, unsure of what comes next. Extend this to how you communicate. Speak less. Release intentions in fragments. Let ambiguity serve as cover so you shape responses without clashing. Unpredictability is not chaos. It's guided fluidity, the capacity to pivot, feint, or redirect while protecting a defined objective. Use decoys in discussions, experiments, and negotiations. Hint one direction, deliver another, then steer again as reality shifts. Over time, people stop trusting their assumptions, and your moves become free of their pressure. Blend this with strategic visibility. Occasionally behave predictably to lull competitors into rest, then change course and exploit the opening they offered by relaxing too soon. The calendar matters. Unpredictability works only when placed on time, with intent, never as randomness. Your shifts should create hesitation, confusion, and caution in others, granting you room to operate. In social settings, cultivate a light aura of mystery. Share selectively. Vary your emotional tempo. Adjust tone and energy so your inner state remains hard to read. That asymmetry creates leverage, because people who cannot forecast you are forced to react instead of initiate. Bring this into decision-making. Avoid the obvious choice when the obvious is easy to counter. Evaluate alternatives, then act in ways that break expectation without breaking coherence. Smart minds thrive here, turning surprise into a tool and converting the unknown into a controllable zone. When others plan for what they think you'll do, you move on what serves your aim. When they pause, you press. With repetition, steady unpredictability builds an invisible shield. Manipulation weakens, deception loses grip, resistance fades, because opponents cannot calculate you with confidence. An old political maxim suggested that a ruler should not cling to promises that injure his essential interests. Principle is not naivety. Type this to cement the identity. I am unpredictable on purpose. Influence driven by feeling seems soft to the untrained, but emotional intelligence is the stealth engine of command. While many lean on force, style, or speeches, those who understand human currents shape outcomes from beneath the surface. Start with keen self-awareness. Catch the first flicker of irritation, appetite, or fear and repurpose it into a signal, not a trigger. Observe others with the same precision. Slight changes in voice, posture, pace, and timing expose motives, limits, and dormant openings. Treat emotions like data. The more faithfully you read them, the more accurately you anticipate what unfolds. Emotional mastery is not numbness. It is calibration, projecting steadiness when unsure, warmth when connection helps, distance when measuring, intensity when momentum matters. The disciplined mind uses mood as a lever because it knows humans rarely act on logic alone. Perception often outruns reality. Influence subtly. A nod at the right second can loosen resistance, a pause can stall conflict, and a tiny shift in expression can turn a decision. At the same time, build your internal armor. The better you regulate yourself, the less provocation pulls you off script. Practice discomfort by design. Hard conversations, heated debates, and high-stakes rooms where attention stings. Train the habit of responding, not flinching. The more attuned you become, the more effortless your guidance will feel to others, because the finest influence is the kind they believe is their own. Emotional intelligence also helps you ride the seesaw between patience and initiative. Knowing when to push, when to withdraw, when to listen, and when to state the move becomes an unseen advantage over competitors who hammer forward or freeze. You fuse reading of people with predictive discipline, interpreting every emotional cue for its downstream effect and shaping responses to maximize position. This quiet mastery shields you from deceit, amplifies presence, and turns friction into a channel you can steer. Combine insight into others with self-command, and you reach a domain where manipulation can't land and influence flows with almost no force. Those who perfect this art arrange rooms without visibly moving pieces. A wise voice from history said that whoever commands himself will eventually guide others. Write this in the comments to seal your standard. I rule my emotions. Becoming the apex thinker is not a badge or a costume. It is a mental state where the mind governs perception, selection, and result. At this height, reaction quiets and calculation reigns. Disorder becomes a partner, complexity becomes a testing ground, and pressure becomes sharpening stone. The apex thinker watches without attachment, predicts without stutter, and moves without telegraphing intent. Ordinary performers respond to events. They scurry, plead for relief, and negotiate from a weaker stance. Apex thinkers design landscapes, tilt probability to their side, and stage environments so outcomes harmonize with plan rather than accident. To reach this plateau, fold in all the earlier disciplines: productive strain, foresight training, flexibility, strategic unpredictability, and emotional command. Each layer multiplies the others, building a mind that sees wider, calculates faster, and adapts with fluid control. Decision-making feels immediate because you preloaded the scenarios. Hesitation dissolves because foresight covered the plausible futures. Social settings shift from stress to fieldwork. A measured glance, a careful phrase, and a balanced presence guide others toward choices they think belong entirely to them, while you remain unreadable and invulnerable. The apex thinker thrives under pressure and inquiry, converting heat into fuel instead of distraction. Envy and deceit lose traction because the mind feeds on disciplined cognition, not outside approval. Information becomes leverage. Knowledge converts to action with surgical accuracy. Facing heavy complexity, the apex thinker does not hunt for certainty that may not exist. They draft pathways through fog, mapping parallel futures and choosing the best route with calm confidence. Rivals may sense intelligence but rarely grasp its reach. Their traps snap on empty air because the apex thinker was already beyond them when the plan formed. At this level, cognition is not merely reactive or tactical. It becomes an autonomous generator of insight, context, and power. Every choice carries comprehension. Every pause signals patience. Every action radiates authority without spectacle. Getting there requires relentless refinement of self-discipline, challenges that stretch capacity without snapping it, and consistent application of cognitive practices until thinking turns both instinctive and intentional. A stark lesson from the past said, "If you cannot be loved and feared at once, fear often carries more reliability, not brutality, but the quiet respect earned by clarity and unpredictability." Hesitation is expensive. Opportunity will not linger. Unused knowledge binds like a cage. Unspent intelligence fades into dust. Step forward. Choose one pillar: strain, prediction, agility, mystery, or emotional regulation, and apply it ruthlessly for 7 days. Track what shifts. Notice how your perception widens, your timing tightens, and your influence grows without raising your voice. Push the borders you once protected. Welcome resistance that used to scare you. Force the brain to adapt on schedule because growth lives in tension, and clear sight is born under load. When you act with deliberation, you begin outthinking others in ways they cannot see, forecasting their steps before they lift a foot, and shaping ends with minimal visible effort. Each decision becomes part of a larger geometry, each interaction a lever, and each barrier a lesson that hardens your edge. This demands more than enthusiasm. It demands rigorous practice. Distractions, alibis, and fear are enemies of piercing thought. Cut them. Every idle minute is leverage surrendered. Surround yourself with inputs that elevate, rooms that test you, and problems that stretch reasoning beyond comfort. Train focus like a blade. Watch human behavior like a scientist. Question your own default beliefs. Measure outcomes. Adjust methods. The loop is continuous and mastery accrues in layers, not in a leap. Remember, power you never use is not power, and intelligence you do not apply is invisible. Act, don't just intend. Take these ideas to the negotiation table, into social geometry, inside decisions at work, and in the hottest moments where others shake. When your thoughts run cleaner than manipulation, quicker than fear, and clearer than noise, no hand can steer you. This is where untouchable begins. If this system sharpened your outlook, mark your commitment. Tap the like, share the lesson with one person who needs it, and subscribe so we can keep forging an edge every day. Your brain is more than a tool. It's a sovereign territory. Guard it, hone it, deploy it with discipline. One more echo from the ancients. Whoever keeps command of himself soon sets the tempo for many. Your practical challenge starts here. Stamp this final line in the comments to bind it to your identity. My mind directs my destiny.